I grew up 2 blocks away from Daniel Cooper. Same street, same cracked sidewalks, same Little League field where we both struck out more than we'd like to admit. We went to the same high school, worked our first jobs at the same hardware store on Elm, and by the time we hit 40, we were pulling almost identical salaries. Both of us middle management, both of us living in the same kind of suburb outside Chicago, both of us thinking we were doing fine. 15 years later, Daniel's life looks nothing like mine. He retired at 55, not cut back a little, not consulting part-time, retired, done. He wakes up when he wants, drinks his coffee on the back porch, coaches his grandson's soccer team on Thursday mornings. Nobody's waiting on him. No deadlines, no boss. Just time real, unhurried, his own time. Me? Last Tuesday, I was sitting in the parking lot of a Walgreens eating a vending machine sandwich because I had a 2 o'clock call I couldn't miss, and no time to go anywhere for lunch. I'm 55 years old, eating crackers and processed cheese in a parking lot, wondering how many more years I have to do this. Same starting line, Daniel and me. I need you to understand that. Because whatever gap you think exists between his life and mine, it didn't happen because he got lucky. It didn't happen because he was smarter, or worked harder, or had some rich uncle nobody knew about. It happened because of decisions we made in our 40s. Quietly, without fanfare, decisions that felt small at the time. And I want to walk you through exactly what those decisions were, because I lived both sides of this story, and I don't want you to end up in that parking lot. Here's what I wish someone had told me when I turned 40. Your 40s are not the middle of your life. Financially, they are the most important decade you will ever have. Not your 20s, not your 30s, your 40s. And almost nobody treats them that way. Think about it. In your 20s, you had energy and time, but no money. You were figuring out how to pay rent. In your 30s, you maybe got some traction, a better salary, a house, but you also had a mortgage, maybe kids, maybe the kind of low-grade financial panic that just becomes background noise. You were surviving. You didn't have the bandwidth to think about anything beyond next month. But your 40s? If you've been even a little bit intentional up to this point, something shifts. Income goes up. The chaos of early life starts to settle. The kids get older. You finally have a little breathing room. And for the first time in your adult life, you have 2 things at the same time, money and time. That combination is rare. It might only come once. And what you do with it decides everything. Daniel understood this at 40. He told me years later he said it felt like he'd been handed a door. Not a fortune, not a windfall, just a door. And he walked through it. I saw the same door. I bought a bigger TV. I'm not trying to be funny when I say that. I'm trying to be honest, because I think it's the most important thing I can tell you. When I got my first real raise at 38, I felt like I'd made it. I remember driving home from work that day, just smiling to myself. I had worked for this. I deserved this. And so, I did what felt natural. I upgraded. New car. Finished the basement. Booked a family trip to Cancun that we'd been putting off for years. And here's the sick part: it felt like progress. On paper, by every outside measure, I was doing better. Nicer car in the driveway, nicer house, nicer vacations. I was winning. Except my bank account looked exactly the same as it did before the raise. There's a name for what was happening to me. Psychologists call it hedonic adaptation. It means the more you have, the more normal it feels, and the more you need just to feel the same level of satisfaction. You get a raise, your lifestyle expands to match it, and within 6 months, you can't even feel the difference. You're just running faster to stay in the same place. Daniel got that same raise around the same time, and I remember asking him, kind of casually, what he was going to do with it. He got quiet for a second and said, "Put most of it to work." I thought he was being weird, uptight, like he didn't know how to enjoy life. I understand now what he meant. Daniel told me once that around 40, he stopped asking himself, "How much do I make?" and started asking a completely different question. He started asking, "How much do I keep, and what does it do while I sleep?" That shift sounds simple, maybe even obvious when you hear it out loud, but it's the difference between treating your paycheck as the destination and treating it as the starting point. Income is a job. You show up, you work, you get paid. Stop working. Stop getting paid. That's it. Assets are different. Every dollar you put into an index fund, a rental property, a dividend account, that dollar keeps working. It doesn't take sick days. It doesn't ask for a raise. It doesn't quit. It just compounds, quietly, in the background, while you're sleeping, while you're watching the game, while you're at your kid's graduation. Daniel became obsessed with this idea. He called it building an army, every dollar a soldier. His goal wasn't to earn more soldiers, it was to deploy the ones he already had. And he had a number, a specific number, the amount of money he needed invested so that the returns alone could cover his expenses forever, without ever touching the principal. That number has a name. It's called your FI number, your financial independence number, and the formula most people use is called the 4% rule. If you can withdraw 4% of your portfolio each year and live on that, you're free. So if you need $60,000 a year to live, your FI number is $1.5 million. If you need $80,000, it's $2 million. Those numbers might sound enormous right now. I get it. They sounded enormous to me too. But here's what changes when you actually know your number. You have a target, and targets change behavior. Daniel had a target at 40. He taped it to the inside of his desk drawer. He looked at it every single day. I didn't have a target. I had a vague feeling that I should save more and a subscription to a streaming service I barely used. So, what exactly did Daniel do? Because I want to be specific here. This isn't motivational abstraction. These were real choices made in real life, and I watched him make almost every one of them. The first was the mortgage decision. We both owned homes. Both of us had equity building up. Around 43, I refinanced my house, pulled out about $60,000, and renovated the kitchen. New cabinets, quartz countertops, the whole thing. It looked incredible. My wife loved it. I was proud of it. Daniel had the same equity sitting there. He looked at it and saw capital. He redirected it carefully, not recklessly, into income-producing assets. A couple of index funds, a small rental property, nothing flashy, just steady. My kitchen is still beautiful. Daniel's investments have been growing for 12 years. The second decision was the retirement account. Every year, Daniel maxed out his 401k. Every single year, no exceptions. And when he turned 50 and the IRS allowed what's called a catch-up contribution, an extra $8,000 a year on top of the regular limit, he used every penny of it. Most people don't even know that option exists. I was contributing just enough to get my employer's match and calling it good. It felt responsible. It felt like I was checking the box. That gap between maxing out and just matching compounded over 15 years into the difference between options and obligations. The third decision was income diversification. Daniel knew that a single income stream is fragile. One layoff, one health scare, one company restructuring, and everything built on that single stream collapses overnight. So while his career was still strong, while he still had the bandwidth, he built a second one, dividend-paying index funds first. Then, eventually, a small rental property, one tenant. Nothing complex. Just a second stream. I told myself I'd diversify eventually. That eventually never came. Life kept happening and eventually stayed just far enough ahead of me that I never caught it. The fourth decision is the one that's hardest to talk about, because it's personal. Daniel and I ran in the same circles, same friends, same cookouts, same group texts about fantasy football, same invitations to bachelor weekends in Vegas, guys' golf trips, destination birthdays. Daniel said no. Not every time, but more often than anyone realized. He drove his car an extra 3 years when everyone else was upgrading. He skipped the Cabo trip once and said he had a thing. He didn't post about it. He didn't announce it. He just quietly, consistently made a different call. I said yes every time. Because nobody posts their brokerage balance on Instagram, they post the trip to Vegas. And I didn't want to be the guy who wasn't there. I was there, every time, and I have great memories. But Daniel has his Thursdays. Here's what stings most when I think about Marcus. When I think about myself in those years. I wasn't irresponsible. I wasn't blowing money on crazy things. I paid my bills on time. I never carried serious credit card debt. I showed up to work every day. By every external measure, I looked like a guy who had his act together. But there's a difference between looking like you're building wealth and actually building it. And for a long time, I never stopped to ask which one I was actually doing. Daniel asked himself that question every year. He'd sit down, look at his numbers, and ask, am I actually moving forward, or does it just feel that way? The answers changed his life. I asked myself how we were doing, and my wife would say, fine, and I would say, yeah, fine, and we'd move on. Fine is how you end up in a Walgreens parking lot at 55.